We do a bunch of testing in clinic. So the big ones for me that I want to know for most patients is I want to know their genetics. I just kind of want to know how their body can potentially work, and that's pretty useful to know. So your genes, MTHFR, APOE, COMT, MAO, a bunch of stuff. Mostly patients don't really need to know the details, but it's pretty useful for me to figure out how to move things around. But then I also want to know not just what the potential for things is and what genetics are doing, but what's actually playing out in the body now. And so one of the things that we use is a Nutristat, which is a broad biomarker array that tells us a whole lot of stuff. And so it tells us standard blood stuff, what's happening with your liver, what's happening with your kidneys, and what's happening with your cholesterol, but break that down to be really granular, doing something called a lipoprotein particle profile, which tells us about the size of those cholesterol particles, and then tells us about lipoprotein little a and apolipoprotein B, which can tell us about cardiovascular risk. So that's useful, but the Nutristat also tells us about what's happening with your red cell fatty acids, so essential fatty acid balance. It'll tell us a little bit about what's happening with metals, so good and bad toxicities. It'll tell us what's happening with amino acids, neurotransmitters. It tells us what's happening with the metabolism, your ability to generate energy from fat, protein, carbs, what's happening with various vitamins and nutrients and stuff. And essentially that broad biomarker array tells us what's happening now. That combined with genetics helps me kind of figure out what things we need to interact with and move around. Both pretty useful tests. A bunch of other tests that we do as well, so microbiome and what's happening with hormones. Nutristat does that as well, but we can get more detailed stuff with doing a Dutch test, and there's toxin tests, and there's all sorts of stuff. Testing, it's an amazing world. It can give you a huge ability to make a meaningful change in what's going on with your health.